Hey everybody, Barry Johns here and welcome back to Studio Talk. You know, as the title kind of says, you want to be able to get as much experience recording as you possibly can. You want to take every opportunity to be able to hone your skills in as many diverse type of situations, diverse types of genres, diverse types of talent, okay? You want to really be able to get out there and get as much experience as you can. Sometimes that may mean leaving your home studio. I'm going to tell you a couple stories about some things to kind of give some perspective to this. You know, again, I'm that old guy in here, but I've learned a lot along the way. I'm by no means the end all to any of this stuff, but I try to always learn. I think I preach that constantly in every video I do. Learning is super, super, super important. Okay, so when I was a teenager, the only way I had to record my little backyard band, we didn't have a garage, but, we practiced in the backyard and we actually showed tickets to the neighborhood kids. I wouldn't say it was worth listening to, but still, we'd set up, three of us would set up in my mom's living room. And, the only way I had to record was with a cassette boom box. That was a time when 8-tracks, cassettes were just taking over 8-tracks. You probably have no idea what an 8-track is. Look it up. But, that's just a microphone built into a cassette boombox. That was my foray into recording, okay? And I learned to put that boombox in different places throughout my mother's living room to try to balance as best I could because obviously the drums were overpowering. So I kept practicing and practicing and practicing, figuring out location until I could get the best I could with that. Then eventually I graduated up, and this probably happened after I graduated high school. I got a Tascam 4-track cassette recorder, all right? And I would, anytime I went locally to see any bands or anything like that where I could get in at that age, I would go up to the band and say, hey, can I record you? I'll do it for free. Hey, you just buy me lunch. I'll do it. No problem. I'll spend as much time as I've got. I'll do the best I can, I promise you. Because I wanted more and more and more experience with that stuff. Now let's kind of talk about, I'm going to change gears for a second, but the principle is the same. You're watching this right now, and I've got a nice camera back there and a nice lens, and I've got a very nice light up there, and I've got lights back there, and a shotgun mic down there, and a remote audio device over there. I could just record through Pro Tools. Sometimes this is just easier, and it captures it just fine. But if you go back a year and a half ago, I knew absolutely nothing about cameras. I knew nothing about lighting. Of course, I knew about audio, things like that. But that was the only thing I brought to the table. I knew none of that. We first started out, trying to create a YouTube channel for my wife. My wife has always homeschooled our kids, and I thought, let's just try that and see how that goes. And so I had to learn very quickly how to do that, and I made a lot of mistakes. But as I would watch each video one after the other as I did them, I would notice, things that didn't work out. I'd say, why did my last video look so much better than the one I just finished? Why is there so much difference? I thought everything was the same. I had to learn about, getting proper exposure between aperture and shutter speed and ISO. Those things may be Greek to you, and they were Greek to me at the time. But I had to learn, and I had to evolve and get better, and I was striving to get better and better and better. Then my wife went through some medical problems, and then ultimately we had to stop doing that YouTube channel. And then the pandemic happened, and then a good friend that I've talked about in the past, in a few episodes so far, he's really into old Willys Jeeps. Willys Jeeps from the, back in the 30s and 40s and all the way through the 60s and everything. Just in restoring those old Willys Jeeps. And he's got a backyard junkyard like you wouldn't believe. And I was over there one day and we were talking. I was actually over there listening to his band practice in his garage. And yeah, I still do that too. And I look around and I said, hey, this is going to give me something to do during this pandemic. I'm not working or anything, so it's going to give me something to do. So he and I decided we're going to start a YouTube channel. And so now I'm having to commute from my home an hour and 15 minutes each way to his house, 2, 3, sometimes 4 days a week, You know, I'm having to learn about lighting in his, you know, how lighting is affected within his garage and his bigger garage that he restores these things in, you know, that's behind his house, as well as going into his backyard where there's trees, and you learn about sunlight during certain times of the day where it's got to be placed. All these things. I know you didn't come here to listen to videography stuff, but this stuff, what I'm going to explain to you in a minute, applies to what I'm going to talk about today. You know, when you have no choice and you've got to pack up everything you've got to do that job, and you've got to go remote every single day and home, then on top of that, he had no idea how to edit video. I didn't either when we started. I had to learn Final Cut Pro. I had to learn all of these things, and it was a steep, steep, steep learning curve, but like anything else, once you get over the hump, it kind of becomes smooth sailing. So I would end up with 20 hours of video and audio from a day's recording session because we just put the cameras on and let them roll. You know, and then I'm having to sift through that oftentimes in real time. So it's time consuming. And you learn it's better to turn them on and off. But then sometimes something would happen, funny or something like that, or interest when the cameras weren't rolling. So I said, forget that, let them roll. And I just got better at skimming through it. But you know, a lot of mistakes were made. You get home and realize, man, the video card or the SD card ran out like 20 minutes before everything else, and I lost all of that video, and that was a key camera angle. That's another thing. We're doing multi-camera angles, everything, okay? But let me tell you, within a year of doing that, I mean, I got really, really, really good at it. I mean, it was to the point where it would take me days to edit one video, where I could get that stuff home now and knock that thing out in about an hour, hour and a half, you know? And so you get really efficient at it. You learn, hey, you better make sure you've got an inventory system for what you've got to take with you so that you're prepared. Now, remember how I talked about in the beginning of this, where I used to go out and just find bands and say, just give me the opportunity. I didn't even care about making any money. I was willing to dedicate all of my free time just to get better at recording, okay? And I'm recording this on a 4-track cassette recorder, and I was really proud of what I did back then, you know? And so ultimately, that's kind of what I would suggest that you guys do. Whether or not you're a bedroom guy who's just writing and recording his or her own music and you want to record your music, there's so much value to putting yourself out there to where other people are dependent upon you, okay? You've got timelines. You've got to get efficient at things. You've got to learn how to be good at things, because even when you're doing it just for free, the more you do it, the better you get, so the higher the expectation. So at some point, you can actually start charging people to do that, just if anything, just to offset your costs. But I'm not talking to you about trying to make money doing this. I'm talking to you about learning how to do this in these difficult situations. When you're out there and you have to learn how to record different genres of music, and not just the genre that you like and you tend to record for yourself, but you're actually having to do that, you're going to realize the way you do your drums is so much different between a pop song and a hard rock song, right? And everything's different in a country song. And so you've got to learn, what are these things that I do differently to try to achieve that end result. And there's so much value to doing that. Now, oftentimes what I recommend to you if you do that, and sometimes you could just be going in Guitar Center or Sam Ash or whatever your local music store, and you see a band's asking for a bass player, something like that. Or you go in Craigslist or wherever it is in your community, musicians look out for other musicians and say, hey, when you find that musician, let me know. I happen to enjoy recording, and I'm willing to put myself out there and come and record your band. And I'm talking about you've never even heard them. You have no idea if they're good or not. You just offer your services. And of course, when it comes time to plan for that day, you want to talk to them. Hopefully, if you can go see them live or go see them practice, that puts you in a much, much better position so the day you show up, you're much better prepared. I strongly recommend doing that if you can. But if you can't, deal with it. Learn how to deal with it. I just spit. I'm sorry, but I'm not going to start this from scratch. I wing this stuff. You should know that by now if you've watched any of my videos. So you want to get that experience as much as you can. Now, preparation, right? So remember how I talked about the video, man? I made so many mistakes. I would show up and forget a shotgun mic. You know, I would show up and forget this, and that's when I started buying these wireless lavalier microphones that were battery operated that I would have as a backup in case I made that mistake again, okay? And by learning from mistakes, you get much better at correcting them, okay? So you talk to the man and say, hey, what microphones do you own? Give me a list of all your microphones. Kind of give me an idea of what kind of condition they're in, if you've had any problems with them or not. Tell me all the mic stands you have. How many boom stands do you have available? Because you may be at home and you may not be setting with enough gear to be able to do all of this, right? And so ultimately you want to take a look at whatever gear they've got and say, look, we're going to need to partner on this thing. And then you bring what you have and you map everything out. So you obviously design a strategy for how you're going to record. Obviously the drums taking up the most of that, you know. And so you've got to think about the tracking aspect of it, and you've got to think about where you are. I don't want to get too deep into that. You'll learn all these things. You'll go into some warehouse where you've gotten, you know, metal ceilings and everything like that, and you realize that maybe they've just rented that warehouse, like a U-Haul warehouse kind of thing out, and they're jamming in it. You know, we used to do that back in the 80s and 90s, okay? And it was great for practicing, but man, recording in that space, hearing all that vibration of that metal and everything, forget about that. You know, you're just setting yourself up for disaster with that. But if you've got to deal with it, then you deal with it. You learn mic position. You learn so many different things. So put yourself out there as much as you can, regardless of what your end goal. I'm not saying, look, this is obviously great advice if you actually would like to build a career. Although we all know that's very difficult these days, so be realistic, shoot for the sky, but understand that you know, not every road that you go down is an easy road to travel. You know, lots changed over the last 15 years or so. But understand that if you want to record other people, what I'm telling you right now is a no-brainer. If you're not already doing this, you should start right away, and I'm talking immediate. I'm talking about give up your free time with your buddies. Sometimes give up your free time with your girlfriend. Not enough to lose her unless she's worth losing. But dedicate your time to get out there and learn as much as you can. Now, if you're a bedroom warrior and you're just wanting to do yourself, okay, there's still value to this. There's so much value to this because you will learn so much by going through this process. So really think about everything we've talked today. Hopefully this video is a little bit shorter than my last few I've put out. I tend to get fairly long-winded on this stuff, and I may lose a few people's attention span along the way, but I love talking about this. I'm passionate about this stuff. And I've made so many mistakes in my journey, but I always strive to learn from every single one of them. You know, it's not that I won't make them again, but if I'm making the same mistakes over and over and over, I'm like, hey, you dummy, stop doing that. What are you doing? Okay? Because again, that pressure spot, and then you get to the point you get really good at this, and then your name is on the line. Your reputation now becomes on the line. And that will become important to you as you gain experience with this. So I strongly encourage you, record as much as you can, okay? Get outside of your space to record with if you can. If you can't and you have a controlled space where you are, bring people to you where you can. Sometimes you may have to go somewhere else and track the drums and then obviously come back into your space and then track the other things if you can. I mean, sadly, the days are kind of gone where the entire band plays from beginning to end. Sadly, that's just not around much anymore. And if you can find a band willing to do that, by all means, that's a whole other challenge altogether to deal with bleed and everything else like that. And that's a whole different skill set that you've got to learn if you want to be able to successfully make the best of that situation. And oftentimes situations like that, they're not perfect. You're making the best of it. So if you like the topics on this channel, you know, I got to do my own little plug down there. There's a little thing going right down there that says, you know, hey, if you like the channel, like, subscribe, hit that notification bell. I'd really appreciate it if you do it. It really helps me out. I'm going to tell you, I've been blown away by the response to these first few videos I put out. I literally sat on the couch and I'm like, how in the world have that many people watched my video? I never really thought anybody'd watch very much of them. I mean, I figured I might get a few hundred views or something like that. But thank you. It's incredibly humbling to me. But like I talked with everything else, it also puts a pressure on me too. Because if I keep doing this, look, I'm not trying to become a YouTuber and make a career out of this. No, I have no intentions of doing that, you know. But if I can make a side gig with this and buy more gear and support this studio, you better believe I'm going to try to milk that for everything I can, but it's always going to be sincere and honest. I'm not the guy that's going to go out and peddle gear that you don't need. If anything, I'm going to be the guy questioning, do you really even need it at all? Is it going to give you what you think it will? So I can promise you, I will do the very best I can in all of my videos to be as honest and upfront, as humble as I possibly can be, you know, and because my desire is to help. That's really what drives this, and that is sincere. I hope you believe that, because it is sincere. So until next time, I do this at the end of all my videos, by the way. You know what you should do? Have a nice day. Oh, enough of that stuff. See you later.